There is a special kind of pain that comes from being thrown away by your own child. The child you carried, raised, sacrificed everything for. The child who looked you in the eye and said you were worthless. I'm 72 years old, and 3 months ago, my son threw me out of my own house in the pouring rain with nothing but a suitcase and told me to go clean toilets if I wanted to survive. What he didn't know, what nobody knew, was that I had the house deed, the real one, the one that proved he'd been lying to me, stealing from me, and planning to discard me like garbage. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how I went from respected mother to homeless burden to the woman who destroyed her own son's life because he deserved every bit of what was coming. Before we dive into this nightmare, I want to know, where are you watching from right now? Are you at home with family, taking a break at work, hiding in your car for some peace? Drop your location in the comments, and if you've ever felt unappreciated by your own family, hit that like button. You're going to want to see how this story ends. It started on a Tuesday in March. Philadelphia was getting hit with one of those cold spring rains that cuts right through you. I was in the kitchen, my kitchen, in the house I'd lived in for 47 years, making dinner for my son and his wife like I did every night. My son, I'll call him David, was 45 years old, still living in my house with his wife Lauren, even though they both had good jobs. They'd moved in temporarily 15 years ago after their wedding, promising it would just be until they saved up for their own place. 15 years later, they were still here, and somehow I'd become the guest in my own home. "Mom!" David yelled from the living room. "This chicken is dry. Can't you cook anything right?" I bit my tongue, like I'd been biting it for years. "I'm sorry, honey. I'll make it better next time." Lauren appeared in the doorway, her face twisted in that expression of disgust she always wore around me lately. "Next time? Why is there always next time with you? Why can't you just do things right the first time?" "I'm doing my best." "Your best isn't good enough. David, we need to talk about this. About her." They went into the bedroom, my master bedroom, the one they'd taken over years ago while I slept in the tiny guest room, and I heard raised voices, heard my name, heard words like burden and useless and getting rid of. My hand shook as I cleaned up the kitchen. This wasn't new. They'd been treating me like hired help for years, but something in Lauren's tone tonight was different, colder, more final. An hour later, David came into the guest room where I was reading. "Mom, we need to talk." I set down my book. "What is it, sweetheart?" "Lauren and I have been discussing things, and we've decided this arrangement isn't working anymore." My heart started pounding. "What arrangement?" "You living here. It's not fair to us. We need our space. We need to start our own family without you hovering all the time." "Hovering? David, this is my house. I've lived here since before you were born." He laughed, actually laughed. "Your house? Mom, come on. I've been paying all the bills for 15 years, the utilities, the repairs, the taxes. This is my house now." "But the deed..." "The deed is in my name, has been for years. You signed it over to me, remember, when you were having those memory problems?" I felt like I'd been slapped. Memory problems? I never had memory problems. I never signed anything over to him. "David, don't start with this. We had a lawyer and everything. You were there. You signed the papers." "Show me. Show me these papers." His expression hardened. "I don't have to show you anything. This is my house and I want you out." "Out? Where am I supposed to go?" "That's not my problem. You're 72, not dead. Get a job, clean houses, work at a store. I don't care. Figure it out." Lauren appeared behind him, arms crossed. "We've been more than generous letting you stay here this long. Most people your age are in nursing homes." "I'm not going to a nursing home." "Then get a job," David said coldly. "There's a cleaning company down on Market Street. They hire old people. You could clean toilets, mop floors. It's honest work." I stared at my son, this man I'd raised, this boy I'd sacrificed everything for, and didn't recognize him. "You want me to clean toilets? I'm your mother." "And I'm your landlord. You have until Friday to get out. That's 3 days." "David, please." "3 days, Mom, or I'm calling the police to remove you for trespassing." He walked out. Lauren smirked at me before following him. I sat there in shock for hours. How had it come to this? How had my sweet little boy turned into this cruel stranger? I thought back over the past 15 years, thought about how gradually things had changed, how David had started taking over the household decisions, how he convinced me to let him handle the finances because it was too stressful for me, how he'd isolated me from my friends, claiming they were bad influences who took advantage of me. Classic manipulation. I could see it now looking back. But when you're in it, when it's your own child doing it, you don't see it. You just think you're being helpful, being a good mother. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went to the county records office. "I need to see the deed for my property," I told the clerk, giving her my address. She typed into her computer, frowned, typed some more. "Ma'am, I'm showing the property is in the name of David Wilson, has been for 8 years. My blood ran cold. 8 years? Can you show me the transfer documents? She pulled them up. There was my signature, or at least something that was supposed to be my signature. But I'd never signed that document, never seen it before in my life. Can I get copies of these? Of course. I took the copies home with shaking hands, studied that signature. It looked like mine, but it wasn't. The flourish on the M was wrong, the loop on the Y too small. Someone had forged my signature. My son had stolen my house. I spent the next 2 days gathering evidence, found my old checkbook with real signatures to compare, pulled out old documents, my marriage certificate, my late husband's will, everything showing my real signature. The forgery was obvious when you knew what to look for. On Friday morning, David came into the guest room at 6 a.m. "Time's up, Mom. Get out." I was already dressed, suitcase packed. I decided to play along, to let him think he'd won. "Please, David, I have nowhere to go." "Not my problem. There's the door." "At least let me stay until I find a place." "No. Out now." It was pouring rain outside, cold, miserable March rain. "David, please. I'm an old woman. Where will I go?" "I told you, get a job cleaning toilets. Maybe that'll teach you some humility." Lauren handed me an umbrella, her expression gleeful. "Good luck, Mom. Try not to end up homeless." They literally pushed me out the door with my suitcase and locked it behind me. I stood there in the rain, 72 years old, watching water run down the windows of my own house while my son and his wife celebrated inside. But I wasn't broken. I was furious, and I was going to make them pay for every cruel word, every dismissive gesture, every moment they made me feel worthless, because I had something they didn't know about. I had the truth. I stood in that rain for exactly 3 minutes, long enough for them to see me through the window looking pathetic and defeated, long enough for Lauren to take a photo. Yes, I saw her do it, probably to post on social media about how they'd finally gotten rid of the burden. Then I got in my car, the one thing they hadn't thought to take from me yet, and drove straight to my lawyer's office. Harold Chin had been my attorney for 30 years, handled my husband's estate when he passed, helped me with various legal matters over the years. He was semi-retired now, but he'd always told me to call if I needed anything. I called. "Harold, I need you. Emergency." His office was in a modest building in Chinatown. I showed up dripping wet with my suitcase, probably looking like every lawyer's nightmare client. But Harold took one look at me and said, "Come in, tell me everything." So I did. The whole story, the gradual takeover of my house, the isolation from friends, the cruel treatment, the forged deed, being thrown out in the rain. I showed him the deed documents from the county, showed him my real signatures for comparison. Harold studied them for a long time, his expression growing darker. "This is fraud," he said finally. "Clear, prosecutable fraud. Your son forged your signature and stole your property. Can we get it back? We can do better than that. We can destroy him." He looked up at me and I saw something fierce in his eyes. "But first, I need to know, how far are you willing to go?" "As far as it takes." "Good, because what I'm about to propose will require patience. It'll require you to suffer a little longer, but in the end, your son will lose everything. Tell me." Harold laid out his plan. It was brilliant, devious, perfect. First, we don't confront him yet. We let him think he's won. We gather more evidence. We build an airtight case. Meanwhile, you disappear. Make him think you really are cleaning toilets somewhere, struggling to survive. Where do I go? You have any friends outside the city? Anyone David doesn't know about? I thought about Margaret, my college roommate who lived in Newark. We'd stayed in touch over the years, but David had always discouraged me from visiting her, said she was too far and not worth the trip. I have someone. Perfect. Go stay with her. Lay low. Meanwhile, I'll file a quiet lawsuit. We'll claim fraud, demand the property be returned. But here's the key. We're not going to warn him. We're going to serve him papers at the worst possible moment. What moment? Harold smiled. When he's already committed to something he can't back out of. When losing the house will cause maximum damage. Over the next week, I stayed with Margaret in Newark. She was horrified by what David had done and immediately opened her home to me. "Stay as long as you need, and if you need help making that boy suffer, I'm here for it." I loved her. Meanwhile, Harold went to work. He filed the lawsuit quietly, requesting that David not be notified until we were ready. He hired a forensic document examiner who confirmed the signature was forged. He pulled financial records showing I'd paid the property taxes for 47 years, right up until David took over. And he discovered something interesting. David had taken out a second mortgage on my house, $200,000 borrowed 8 months ago. "Do you know what he used it for?" Harold asked when he called to tell me. "No idea." "Neither do I, but I'm going to find out, because if he's been using your stolen property as collateral for loans, that's another level of fraud." It took Harold's investigator exactly 3 days to figure out where the money went. David had invested it all in a restaurant, an upscale place in Center City called Wilson's. Yes, he'd named it after himself, the narcissist. He'd put down the entire $200,000 as his investment in a partnership with 2 other people. The restaurant was set to open in 6 weeks. "This is perfect," Harold said. "Once the restaurant opens, he'll be committed. He won't be able to pull out his investment without losing everything. That's when we strike." "Won't the partners sue him?" "Oh, absolutely, which means he'll be fighting legal battles on multiple fronts. And here's the beautiful part. When we prove the mortgage was fraudulent because he didn't own the property, the bank will demand immediate repayment. He won't have it. He'll lose the house and the restaurant investment." That's everything. That's justice. Your son didn't just steal from you. He built his entire future on that theft, and we're going to knock it down like a house of cards. While Harold built our case, I got a job. Not cleaning toilets, though I'd come close to applying just in spite of David if he ever found out. Instead, I got a job at a senior community center running their activities program. It paid modestly, but came with purpose. I also started volunteering at a homeless shelter, saw firsthand what happened to elderly people who had nowhere to go, who'd been abandoned by their families. It broke my heart, and it gave me an idea. 6 weeks passed. The restaurant opened with a big fancy party that I saw photos of on social media. Yes, Lauren had posted them, bragging about their new business venture and their beautiful home. My home, filled with my furniture, my memories, my entire life. The comments were sickeningly congratulatory. You two deserve this. So proud of you, living your best life. Nobody asked about me. Nobody wondered where I'd gone. I'd simply been erased, but not for much longer. On the Monday after the restaurant opened, Harold called. It's time. Are you ready? I've been ready for 6 weeks. Good. The process server is heading to the restaurant right now. Your son is about to have a very bad day. I drove back to Philadelphia, parked across the street from Wilson's, watched through the window as David greeted customers, playing the role of successful restaurateur. Then I saw the process server walk in, saw him hand David a thick envelope of papers. Watched my son's face change from confusion to horror as he read. He was being sued for fraud, forgery, elder abuse, and theft. The house was being placed in recession pending resolution. The second mortgage was being declared fraudulent, and he had 30 days to respond. His business partners were right there, watched the whole thing, started asking questions. David's face went white. I drove away smiling. Let the games begin. The first call came that night. David's number. I let it go to voicemail. Mom, what the hell did you do? Call me back right now. The second call came 10 minutes later. Mom, this is insane. You can't sue me. I'm your son. Call me back. The third call was Lauren. You bitter old hag. How dare you do this to us after everything we did for you? I deleted them all without listening to the full messages. The fourth call was different, a lawyer representing David and Lauren. Mrs. Wilson, I'm calling on behalf of your son. He's willing to discuss a settlement. Perhaps we can resolve this without going to court. I called Harold. They want to settle. Of course they do. Say no. We're going to court. We're going to make this public. Won't that be harder on me? Maybe, but it'll be devastating for them. Your son positioned himself as a successful businessman. When it comes out that he stole his elderly mother's house and threw her out in the rain, his reputation will be destroyed. The restaurant will suffer, his partners will sue, everything will collapse. And the house? You'll get it back, plus damages, plus legal fees, plus potentially criminal charges if the DA decides to prosecute. How long will it take? 4 to 6 months if we push hard. Can you wait that long? I thought about the senior center where I was working, about the elderly people there who had so little, about my idea. I can wait. The lawsuit became public record within days, and because David had been promoting the restaurant so heavily on social media, people noticed. Isn't this the guy who just opened Wilson's? Wait, he stole his mother's house? He threw her out in the rain at 72? The comments started pouring in on the restaurant's social media pages, on David and Lauren's personal pages, everywhere. You're disgusting. How could you do that to your own mother? I'll never eat at your restaurant. Elder abuse is a crime. David tried to control the narrative, posted a long explanation about how I was mentally unwell and making false accusations, and how they tried to help me, but I'd refused. It didn't work. Someone found Margaret. She gave an interview to a local news station about how I'd shown up at her door soaking wet with a suitcase, how David had literally pushed me out of my own house. The story went viral. Local restaurateur accused of elder abuse. Son throws 72-year-old mother out, steals her home. Restaurant owner faces fraud charges over stolen property. The restaurant started hemorrhaging customers. David's partners were furious. They'd invested their own money based on David's $200,000 contribution, money he'd stolen from me. They sued him too, wanted their money back, wanted to dissolve the partnership. David and Lauren's lawyer called Harold 3 more times trying to negotiate a settlement. "They're offering to sign the house back over," Harold told me after the 3rd call. "No admission of guilt, clean transfer, they walk away." What do I lose if I say no? Nothing. We have them dead to rights. The forensic analysis proved the signature was forged. We have witnesses to them throwing you out. We have financial records. This is open and shut. Then no settlement. I want this in court. Why? What are you after? I told him my plan, about the senior center, about what I wanted to do with the house. Harold was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed. "That's perfect. That's absolutely perfect." The preliminary hearing was in June. I showed up in a simple dress, looking exactly like what I was, an elderly woman who'd been abused by her own child. David and Lauren showed up in expensive clothes, probably trying to look successful and trustworthy. It backfired, made them look callous and materialistic next to my humble presentation. The judge was a woman in her 60s named Rodriguez. She looked at the evidence, looked at David and Lauren, looked at me. "Mr. Wilson, did you forge your mother's signature on these property transfer documents?" "No, Your Honor. She signed them willingly. She just doesn't remember." "We have a forensic analysis that says otherwise. The analyst is wrong." "The analyst is a 30-year veteran with impeccable credentials. You're a restaurateur with a clear motive to lie." Judge Rodriguez's voice was ice. "Did you throw your mother out of her home during a rainstorm?" "We asked her to leave. Yes, it was our property." "Property you acquired through what appears to be forged documents. Did you tell her to get a job cleaning toilets?" John Lon jumped in. "She needed to learn responsibility. She was living off us." "Living off you in her own home that she owned for 47 years before you stole it?" The hearing didn't go well for David and Lauren. Judge Rodriguez ordered the property immediately returned to me, ordered David to pay $50,000 in damages for emotional distress and elder abuse, ordered both of them to pay my legal fees, and she referred the case to the district attorney for possible criminal prosecution. "Elder abuse is a serious crime in Pennsylvania," said Judge Rodriguez from the bench, "as is fraud and forgery. I'm recommending the DA review this case for criminal charges." David went pale. Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting. They'd been following the case because of the viral social media posts. "Mrs. Wilson, how do you feel about getting your house back?" "I'm grateful for justice," I said simply. "No elderly person should be treated the way my son treated me." "Will you reconcile with your son?" I looked directly at the camera. "My son chose money and pride over his own mother. He forged documents, stole my home, and threw me out in the rain. There is no reconciliation from that." "What will you do now?" "I'm going to make sure this never happens to anyone." The interview aired that night. The story got picked up nationally. Philadelphia mother wins case against son who stole her home. David's restaurant closed 2 weeks later. His partners had successfully dissolved the partnership and were suing him for their losses. Without the restaurant income and facing massive legal bills, David and Lauren couldn't fight anymore. The house was officially returned to me in July, 4 months after they'd thrown me out. I walked through it with Harold and Margaret. It was a mess. They'd let it deteriorate. Broken fixtures, stained carpets, damaged walls. "This is going to cost a fortune to fix," Harold said. "I know. That's why I'm not fixing it. I'm renovating it." For what? For the people who need it most. The house needed more than cosmetic repairs. It needed a complete renovation, and I needed funding. That's when something unexpected happened. The viral story about my case had reached people all over the country, and they started sending money. Small donations at first, $20 here, $50 there, people who'd been through similar situations with their own families, people who'd watched elderly relatives be abused or abandoned. Then a larger donation came in, $10,000 from a woman in California whose mother had been stolen from by her brother. "Your story gave me courage to take legal action," her letter said. "This is to help you rebuild." Then another, $5,000 from a man in Texas, $15,000 from a retired couple in Florida. Within 6 weeks, I had $75,000 in donations. "People want to help," Margaret said, looking at the fundraising page someone had set up for me without my knowledge. "They see themselves in your story, or their parents, or their fears about getting old. I can't just keep this money." "Then use it. Use it for what you told me you wanted to do." So I did. I hired contractors, not the expensive fancy ones, but good, honest workers who understood what I was trying to build. "I want to turn this house into a temporary shelter," I told them, "for elderly people who have nowhere else to go, who've been abandoned or abused by their families, a place where they can stay while they get back on their feet." The head contractor, a man in his 50s named Thomas, nodded slowly. "My mother-in-law went through something similar. Son kicked her out, stole her savings. She lived with us for 3 years before she could afford her own place again." "Then you understand." "I do, and I'll give you the family discount." Over the next 3 months, we transformed that house from a place of pain into a place of hope. The senior center where I was working spread the word. So did local churches and community organizations. We started getting applications from elderly people who needed help. The first resident was Dorothy, 80 years old. Her daughter had drained her bank account and left her homeless. "I've been sleeping in my car for 2 months, she told me when I interviewed her. "I'm too proud to go to a regular shelter, too ashamed." "There's no shame here," I said. "Only support. You can stay as long as you need." She cried, actually cried. "Why are you doing this? You don't know me." "Because someone did it to me, and I survived, and now I'm making sure others survive too." Dorothy moved in that week. Within a month, she'd found part-time work at a library and was saving money for her own apartment. The second resident was Frank, 75. His son had convinced him to sign over power of attorney, then used it to steal everything. "I trusted him," Frank said, his voice broken. "He was my son. How could I not trust him?" I knew exactly how he felt. The third resident was Helen, 68. Her family had put her in a nursing home and sold her house without her consent. "They said I was incompetent," she said bitterly. "I'm not incompetent. I'm just old. There's a difference." By October, 4 months after I'd gotten the house back, we had 6 residents, 6 elderly people who'd been thrown away by their families, now rebuilding their lives under my roof. Margaret helped run the place, so did volunteers from the senior center. We created a community, meals together, game nights, support groups where people could share their stories without judgment. It was healing, for them and for me. The local news did a follow-up story. From elder abuse victim to community hero, woman transforms stolen home into shelter. The story showed our residents, their faces blurred for privacy, talking about what the shelter meant to them. "This place saved my life," Dorothy said. "I was ready to give up, and then I found people who understood, who'd been through it too, who didn't judge me for being old and abandoned." The donations increased after that story aired, more money than I knew what to do with. "You need to make this official," Harold said. "Form a nonprofit, get proper funding, expand." Expand? There are hundreds of elderly people in Philadelphia alone who need this, thousands across the state. You've proven the model works, now scale it. So we did. Filed paperwork for a 501c3, got tax-exempt status, started applying for grants. I named it Second Chances Home for Seniors. Within a year, we had a waiting list of 50 people. "We need more space," Margaret said, looking at the applications. "We need more houses." I thought about David's restaurant space. It had sat empty since Wilson's closed. The landlord was desperate to rent it. "What if we didn't do another house?" I said slowly. "What if we created a community center instead? A place where elderly people could come during the day, get resources, attend workshops, connect with others." We signed the lease on the old restaurant space 3 months later, used grant money and donations to renovate it into a senior resource center. Where David's vanity restaurant had failed, our community center thrived. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. I hadn't seen or spoken to David in over a year when he showed up at the shelter. It was a Tuesday evening. I was helping Dorothy prepare dinner in the community kitchen when the doorbell rang. Frank answered it, came back looking uncomfortable. "There's a man here, says he's your son." My hands stilled on the cutting board. "Tell him to leave." "He says he needs to talk to you, says it's important." Margaret appeared at my elbow. "Want me to call the police?" I thought about it. Thought about having him removed like he'd had me removed. But curiosity won. "No, I'll talk to him. Out front, not inside." I walked to the front door. David was standing on the porch, looking like he'd aged 10 years in one. Thinner, gray hair, defeated posture. "Mom, what do you want?" "I need to talk to you." "So talk." He glanced behind me at Frank and Margaret, who were obviously listening. "Can we do this privately?" "No. Anything you have to say to me, you can say in front of witnesses. I learned that lesson the hard way." He flinched. "I deserve that. You deserve a lot worse than that." "I know. That's why I'm here, to apologize." I laughed, actually laughed. "Apologize? You stole my house, forged my signature, threw me out in the rain, told me to clean toilets, and you think an apology fixes that?" No, I know it doesn't, but I need to say it anyway. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry." "Why now? Why not a year ago when you could have stopped the lawsuit? Why not when you were throwing me out? Why now?" He looked away. "Because I lost everything. The restaurant's gone. My partners sued me. I had to declare bankruptcy. Lauren left me. She's filing for divorce. I'm living in a studio apartment working as a warehouse manager. Everything I built is gone." "Good." He looked shocked. "Good? You built it on theft and lies. You built it on my back. So yes, good that it's gone." "I thought you'd be happy I was suffering." "I'm not happy. I'm satisfied. There's a difference." I crossed my arms. "You still haven't told me why you're really here." He hesitated. "The DA is pressing charges: fraud, forgery, elder abuse. My lawyer says I'm looking at 3 to 5 years in prison." There it was, the real reason for his visit. "And you want me to make it go away." "I want you to tell them it was a misunderstanding, that you did sign the papers and just forgot, that I didn't abuse you." "You want me to lie." "I want you to show mercy. I'm your son." "You stopped being my son the day you threw me out in the rain." "Mom, please, I'll lose everything. I'll go to prison." "You already lost everything. And yes, you probably will go to prison because you committed crimes." I was desperate. The restaurant was my dream and I needed capital. So you stole from your mother? That's your defense? I was going to pay you back once the restaurant was successful. The restaurant you named after yourself, the one you bragged about on social media while I was homeless, that restaurant? He had no answer for that. I stepped closer to him. Let me tell you what you cost me. Not the house, I got that back. Not the money, I got that back too. You cost me my ability to trust my own child. You cost me my sense of security in my old age. You cost me my belief that family meant something. I know I'm not finished. You also cost yourself a mother. Because I'm done, David. I have 6 people living in this house right now who have more integrity in their little fingers than you have in your entire body. They're my family now. You're just the person who happened to share my DNA. So that's it? You're just cutting me off after everything we've been through? Everything we've been through. What did you go through? Living rent-free in my house for 15 years, eating my food, using my utilities, and then stealing it all when you decided I wasn't useful anymore? Tears started running down his face. I'm sorry. I know I screwed up. I know I hurt you. But you're my mother. You're supposed to forgive me. That's what mothers do. No, mothers raise their children to be good people. I failed at that, but I'm not going to compound that failure by teaching you that crime and cruelty have no consequences. So you're really going to let me go to prison? I'm not letting you do anything. You did this to yourself. The DA is prosecuting you based on evidence and the law. I'm just not going to lie to save you from the consequences of your own actions. What about Lauren? Are you going to let her go to prison too? Lauren threw me out. Lauren called me an old hag. Lauren took photos of me standing in the rain to post on social media. So yes, if the DA decides to prosecute her, I won't stop it. David stood there, deflated. I don't know what I expected coming here. You expected me to be weak, to cave because I'm your son and I'm supposed to love you unconditionally. But unconditional love doesn't mean accepting abuse. It doesn't mean enabling criminal behavior. So there's nothing I can do? Nothing that would make you help me? I thought about it, really thought about it. Actually, there is one thing. Hope flickered in his eyes. What? Anything. Work here, at the shelter. Volunteer. See what you did from the other side. Meet the people who've been abandoned by their families. Hear their stories. Understand the pain you caused. You want me to volunteer at your shelter? I want you to develop empathy, something you clearly don't have. And if you can do that, if you can spend real time with these people, treat them with respect, genuinely help them, then maybe I'll write a letter to the judge explaining that you're trying to make amends. That's it? Just volunteer? Just volunteer, David? These are human beings you threw away like garbage, people just like me. If you can spend time with them, really see them, and still not understand what you did wrong, then there's no hope for you anyway. He stared at me. When do I start? Tomorrow, 6 a.m. We serve breakfast at 7. You'll help prep, serve, and clean up. Then you'll stay for the day program, help with activities, maintenance, whatever's needed. You'll be here 6 days a week. 6 days? I have a job. Then quit or work nights. I don't care. This is the deal. Take it or leave it. He swallowed hard. And if I do this, you'll help with the sentencing? If you do this genuinely, with humility and real effort, I'll consider writing a letter. That's all I'm promising. Fine, I'll be here tomorrow. He turned to leave, then stopped. Mom, do you think you'll ever forgive me? I looked at this man who'd caused me so much pain, this stranger wearing my son's face. I don't know. Ask me again in 6 months, after you've earned it. He left without another word. Margaret appeared at my side. Do you really think he'll show up tomorrow? Probably not. People like David don't change. They just look for new ways to manipulate. But if he does, then maybe there's something worth salvaging, but I'm not holding my breath. Story showed up the next morning at 5:55 a.m. I was already in the kitchen with Dorothy, prepping breakfast for our residents. He stood in the doorway looking uncomfortable in jeans and an old t-shirt. "I'm here." "Good. Wash your hands. You're on pancake duty." For the next 2 hours, David worked. Awkwardly at first, clearly not used to kitchen work. He burned the first batch of pancakes, spilled juice, dropped a plate. But he kept trying. When breakfast was served, I made him sit with the residents and eat with them. "This is Dorothy, Frank, Helen, George, Mary, and Thomas. Everyone, this is David. He's volunteering here." The silence was thick. Some of them knew who he was. The story had been local news. Frank looked particularly hostile. "You're the son," Frank said flatly. "The one who threw her out." David shifted uncomfortably. "Yes. Why are you here?" "Good question." David looked at me, then back at Frank. "Because I did something terrible, and I need to understand what I did. I need to try to make it right." "Can't make it right," Frank said. "My son stole everything from me, too. There's no making that right." "I know, but I have to try." The breakfast was silent and tense, but it was a start. Over the next few weeks, David showed up every day. He was terrible at first, complained about the early hours, the menial work, the lack of appreciation. "Nobody even says thank you," he grumbled one morning while mopping the kitchen. "Why should they?" I asked. "You're doing the bare minimum. Gratitude is earned, not owed." He bristled but kept working. Slowly, things shifted. I watched him interact with the residents, saw him start to actually listen when they talked, saw him help George fix a broken lamp without being asked, saw him sit with Mary one afternoon when she was crying about her daughter who'd abandoned her. "My daughter used to be so sweet," Mary said through tears. "I don't know what happened. One day she just changed, started seeing me as a burden instead of her mother." David was quiet for a long time. Then, "I did that to my mom. Saw her as a burden, as something in my way instead of a person." "Why?" "I don't know. Greed, selfishness. I wanted things, and she was there, and it was easy to take from her." "Do you regret it?" "Every day. But regret doesn't undo what I did." "No, but maybe it's a start." I listened to this exchange from the kitchen, not sure what to feel. Was he genuinely changing? Or was this just another manipulation, playing the repentant son to get my help with his legal case? 2 months into his volunteering, David approached me with an idea. "What if we did a legal aid clinic here, once a week? I've been talking to some of the residents, and a lot of them need legal help but can't afford lawyers." "Where would we get lawyers?" "There are organizations that do pro bono work. I contacted a few. They're interested." I studied him. "Why do you care?" "Because Frank can't visit his grandkids because his son got a restraining order based on lies. Because Dorothy's daughter is still accessing her bank account even though she's not supposed to. Because these people need help and nobody's helping them." "That's what I've been doing, helping them." "I know, but you can't do everything alone." He was right, damn him. The legal aid clinic started a month later. Every Tuesday evening, volunteer lawyers came to help residents with their cases: power of attorney issues, financial fraud, custody disputes, the same legal nightmares that had destroyed their lives. Frank was the first success story. The lawyer helped him gather evidence that his son's restraining order was fraudulent. The order was dismissed, and Frank got supervised visitation with his grandchildren. I found him crying in the common room after his first visit. "I got to see them, my grandbabies. They're so big now. I've missed 2 years of their lives, but I got to see them." David was there, put a hand on Frank's shoulder. "I'm happy for you." Frank looked up at him. "You helped make this happen, the legal clinic. It wasn't just me. It was you who suggested it, you who made the calls, so thank you." I watched David's face, saw genuine emotion there, Not pride or smugness, something deeper, maybe understanding. The DA's office scheduled David's trial for January, 6 months after he'd started volunteering. His lawyer called me. "Mrs. Wilson, my client is asking if you've reconsidered writing that letter to the judge. Tell your client to ask me himself." David came to me that evening after the dinner cleanup. "Mom, the trial's in 2 weeks. Have I done enough?" "Enough for what?" "For you to write the letter, to tell the judge I'm trying to change." I looked at him, really looked at him. He'd changed physically, lost weight, gained some muscle from the physical work, had more gray in his hair, looked older. But had he changed where it mattered? "Frank's grandchildren," I said. "Tell me about it." He blinked, surprised. "What?" "You were there when Frank talked about finally seeing them. Tell me about it." They're 5 and 7. The youngest one didn't remember him at all. The older one did and was excited to see him. Frank brought them books and read to them for 2 hours straight. And Dorothy's daughter. Still fighting the restraining order, but Dorothy's bank account is secured now. Her daughter can't touch it. George's lamp? Fixed. Turns out the wiring was loose. Simple repair. Mary's physical therapy appointments? I've been driving her. Her knees are getting better. She might not need the walker much longer. He knew them, knew their stories, their struggles, their small victories. That meant something. "I'll write the letter," I said, "but I'm not going to lie. I'm going to tell the judge exactly what you did to me and exactly what you've done since. The rest is up to him." Relief flooded David's face. Thank you, Mom." "Don't thank me yet. You're still probably going to prison. My letter just might make it 2 years instead of 5. "I know, but it's more than I deserve." "Yes, it is." The letter took me 3 days to write. I went through 17 drafts. How do you summarize your son destroying you and then maybe, possibly, starting to rebuild himself? In the end, I kept it simple and honest. "Your Honor, my son committed terrible crimes against me. He forged my signature, stole my home, and threw me out in the rain at 72. He told me to clean toilets. He laughed at my pain. These facts are undisputed. He did these things. He deserves to be punished for them. However, I am writing to inform the court of what he has done since. For the past 6 months, David has volunteered at the shelter I created in the home he stole from me. He has worked with elderly victims of elder abuse, people just like me. He has listened to their stories. He has helped them navigate legal systems and rebuild their lives. I do not know if this represents genuine change or simply a calculated effort to reduce his sentence. I am not naive enough to think 6 months of volunteering erases years of cruelty. But what I do know is that the man who showed up 6 months ago was different from the man who works there now. He knows the residents by name. He knows their stories. He advocates for them. Is this enough? I don't know. That is for the court to decide. What I do know is that David understands now, truly understands what he cost me and others like me. Whether that understanding came from genuine remorse or from experiencing consequences, I cannot say. I leave his fate in your capable hands. Respectfully, Elizabeth Wilson. The trial lasted 3 days. I attended every session, sitting in the back of the courtroom with Margaret and Harold. The prosecution laid out the case methodically, the forged signatures, the stolen property, the financial fraud. Witnesses testified, neighbors who'd seen me thrown out, the forensic document examiner, the bank officer who'd flagged the suspicious mortgage. Lauren testified too. She'd taken a plea deal, testimony against David in exchange for probation and community service. She looked terrible on the stand, broken. She admitted to everything, to encouraging David to take the house, to helping him forge documents, to laughing as they pushed me out. "I thought we were being smart," she said, her voice small. "I thought we were securing our future. I didn't think about what we were doing to her. She was just in the way." The prosecution pressed. "In the way of what?" of our life, our dreams. We wanted things, and she was always there, needing things, taking up space. Did you ever consider that it was her house? Not really. We'd lived there so long it felt like ours. The defense tried to paint me as a willing participant who'd later had regrets, suggested I'd signed the papers and forgotten, brought up my age, implied memory issues. Harold destroyed that theory in 10 minutes with medical records showing I'd never been diagnosed with any cognitive impairment. Then came David's testimony. His lawyer had clearly prepared him. He wore a suit, spoke carefully, expressed remorse. "I made terrible mistakes," he said. "I hurt my mother in ways I can't fully express. I was selfish and cruel." "Do you regret your actions?" his lawyer asked. "Every single day." "What have you done to make amends?" "I've been volunteering at my mother's shelter for 6 months, working with elderly victims of elder abuse, trying to understand what I did, trying to help people like my mother." The prosecution's cross-examination was brutal. "Mr. Wilson, you started volunteering after you were charged, correct?" "Yes." "After you knew you were facing prison time?" "Yes." Convenient timing, wouldn't you say? "I understand how it looks, but it's genuine. I've changed." "Have you? Or have you simply found a new way to manipulate, this time manipulating the court's sympathy?" "No, it's real. You manipulated your mother for 15 years. You forged her signature. You stole her home. You threw her out in the rain. Why should anyone believe you're capable of genuine remorse?" David had no good answer for that. The prosecution rested. The defense called character witnesses, people from the shelter, Frank, Dorothy, George. They testified about the work David had done, the legal aid clinic, the small kindnesses, the genuine connections. "He's not the same person who committed these crimes," Frank testified. "I've watched him change." "How do you know he's not just acting?" the prosecutor asked. "Because I've been lied to by my own son. I know what manipulation looks like. This is different." "Different how?" "He listens. He remembers things. He follows up. When I told him about my grandson's birthday last month, he brought a card for me to give him. Nobody who's faking empathy remembers details like that." Finally, they read my letter to the court. I watched the judge's face as she listened. Judge Rodriguez, the same judge who'd presided over the civil case. When the letter was finished, she looked directly at me. "Mrs. Wilson, would you like to address the court?" I hadn't planned to, but I stood. "Your Honor, everything in that letter is true. My son committed terrible crimes against me. He also, in the past 6 months, has done genuine good work at the shelter. Are these enough to cancel out? No, but there's something. What that something means, I leave to the court's wisdom." I sat down. David looked back at me, eyes red. The jury deliberated for 6 hours, guilty on all counts. David's face crumbled. Lauren, sitting in the gallery, started crying. Sentencing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. During those 2 weeks, David continued volunteering. I didn't ask him to. He just showed up. "The sentencing is in 3 days, Margaret said. "Why is he still coming?" "Maybe because it's not about the sentencing anymore." "Do you believe that?" "I don't know what I believe." On the day of sentencing, the courtroom was packed. Media, curious onlookers, residents from the shelter. Judge Rodriguez reviewed the case, the evidence, the testimony. "Mr. Wilson, you committed serious crimes against your own mother, elder abuse, financial fraud, forgery. These crimes strike at the heart of what it means to be family, to be human. David stood, his lawyer beside him. The prosecution recommends 5 years in state prison. The sentencing guidelines support this recommendation. However, I've also reviewed the evidence of your volunteer work, the testimony of the people you've helped, and your mother's letter. She paused. The courtroom was silent. I'm going to do something unusual. I'm sentencing you to 3 years in state prison with the possibility of work release after 1 year. If, after serving 1 year, you can demonstrate continued commitment to service, continued personal growth, and if your mother agrees, you may be eligible to serve the remainder of your sentence under work release supervision, volunteering at the shelter. Murmurs ran through the courtroom. This is not mercy. This is accountability with possibility. You've taken the first steps towards becoming a better person. Prison will give you time to continue that work, and if you're genuine about change, you'll have a chance to prove it. She banged the gavel. As for Mrs. Lauren Wilson, you are sentenced to 2 years of probation and 1,000 hours of community service to be served at a senior care facility. Lauren nodded, crying. David was led away in handcuffs. As he passed my row, he looked at me. "Thank you," he mouthed. I didn't respond. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed me. "Mrs. Wilson, are you satisfied with the sentence?" "I'm satisfied that justice was served." "Will you support his work release application?" "Ask me in a year. If he's genuinely changed, I'll know by then." "Do you forgive him?" I thought about that question, really thought about it. "I'm working on it," I said finally. "Forgiveness isn't something you do once. It's something you choose every day until one day it's true. I'm not there yet, but I'm trying." David served his first year in state prison. I didn't visit. Neither did Lauren, who was divorced from him by then. But I got letters, one every week. At first, I threw them away unread. Then curiosity got the better of me. "Mom, prison is exactly what I deserve. Every day here, I think about what I did to you, about the rain, the suitcase, the cruelty. I can't believe I was that person. The other inmates know my story. One of them spit in my food last week, called me a piece of shit who throws out his own mother. I couldn't even defend myself because he was right. I'm taking classes here, GED tutoring for other inmates, anger management, a course on elder care, trying to use this time to become someone better. I don't know if you're reading these, maybe you're throwing them away, but I need to write them anyway. Need to tell you I'm sorry, even if you never forgive me. I love you. I know I have no right to say that after what I did, but it's true. David." I kept that letter, and the ones that followed. He wrote about prison life, about the other inmates' stories, about a guy who'd stolen from his grandmother and how they'd formed a strange support group of men who'd hurt their families. "We call ourselves the Regret Club," one letter said. "We meet twice a week and talk about what we did and who we hurt. It's pathetic, but it's something." The shelter continued to grow. We had 10 residents now. The legal aid clinic was helping dozens of people. We'd expanded the day program to include job training and financial literacy. Frank moved out into his own apartment. So did Dorothy. They both continued to volunteer, giving back to the place that had helped them. New residents came, each with their own story of family betrayal, each finding hope in a place built from pain. Margaret officially became co-director. "Someone needs to keep you from working yourself to death," she said. "Might as well be me." The fundraising continued. We were close to having enough to buy a second house to expand our capacity. 10 months into David's sentence, I got a call from the prison warden. "Mrs. Wilson, your son has applied for work release. He's listed your shelter as the proposed work site. I need to know if you'll accept him." "What do you recommend?" I asked. "Honestly, he's been a model prisoner, helps other inmates, takes every class offered, has 0 disciplinary issues. If his rehabilitation is genuine, he's done the work. And if it's not genuine, then he's the best actor I've seen in 30 years of corrections." I thought about it for a week, talked to Margaret, to Harold, to some of the shelter residents who knew David. "Give him a chance," Frank said. "He gave me one when he helped set up the legal clinic. Maybe he's earned one back." "He threw you out in the rain. That's not something you forget," Dorothy said. "No, but maybe it's something you can move past if he's really changed." I called the warden. "I'll accept him under conditions." "What conditions?" I thought about it for a week, talked to Margaret, to Harold, to some of the shelter residents who knew David. "Give him a chance," Frank said. "He gave me one when he helped set up the legal clinic. Maybe he's earned one back." "He threw you out in the rain. That's not something you forget," Dorothy said. "No, but maybe it's something you can move past if he's really changed." I called the warden. "I'll accept him under conditions." "What conditions?" I informed him. David was released to work release 3 weeks later. I picked him up from prison myself. He walked out in donated clothes, carrying a small bag of belongings. "Hi, Mom." "Get in the car." The drive was silent. Finally, David spoke. "I know you didn't have to do this. Thank you." "Don't thank me. Prove you deserve this chance." "I will." He moved into the smallest room at the shelter, the one with a single bed and a view of the alley. I gave him the worst room on purpose. If he complained, he'd fail the test. He didn't complain. "It's more than I deserve," he said when he saw it. He fell back into the shelter routine like he'd never left. Up at 5:30 a.m., breakfast prep, cleaning, activities, legal clinic on Tuesdays, evening meal prep, cleanup. But something was different this time. Before, he'd worked with a kind of desperate energy, like he was trying to prove something. Now he worked with quiet purpose, like this was simply what he did, who he was. I watched him carefully for signs of manipulation. Found none. Watched him interact with new residents. Saw genuine compassion, no condescension, no superiority, just human connection. One new resident, an 80-year-old man named Arthur, was particularly difficult. Angry at the world, hostile to everyone, convinced all kindness was manipulation. "I know you're faking," he snarled at David one morning. "Nobody's this nice. What do you want from us?" "Nothing," David said calmly. "I'm just trying to help." "Why? What's in it for you?" David was quiet for a moment. Then, "Redemption, maybe. I did terrible things to my mother. I can't undo them, but I can try to do better now, for her and for people like you who deserve better." "You're one of them," Arthur said, realization dawning. "You're one of the sons who threw out their parents." "Yes." "And you think volunteering here makes up for it?" "No, nothing makes up for it. But sitting in my guilt doesn't help anyone, so I do this instead." Arthur softened slightly. "At least you're honest about it." Over the next few months, David and Arthur formed an unlikely friendship. David helped Arthur reconnect with his estranged grandchildren. Arthur helped David understand the long-term impact of elder abuse. You don't just destroy one moment, you destroy every future moment they might have had, every holiday, every celebration, every moment of security. That's what you took from your mother. I know. Do you? Do you really understand what it feels like to be 70+ years old and alone in the world? To know your own child thinks you're disposable? I'm trying to understand. Try harder. 6 months into David's work release, I asked him to take a walk with me, just the two of us. We went to the park near the shelter, sat on a bench watching kids play. I asked him if he remembered bringing me here when he was little. Yeah, you'd push me on the swings for hours. I'd beg for 5 more minutes, and you'd always say yes. You were a sweet kid, thoughtful, kind. What happened to that boy? David was quiet for a long time. I don't know. Somewhere along the line, I started valuing things more than people, success more than relationships, money more than you. Why? Society, I guess. The message that you're only worth what you earn, that elderly people are burdens instead of assets, that families are only as strong as their bank accounts. You chose to believe those messages. I did, and I'm sorry. We sat in silence watching the sun set over the playground. Are you a different person now, or are you just better at hiding who you really are? I don't know. I think I'm the person I should have been all along, the person I was before I let greed and selfishness corrupt me. But I can't prove that. I can only show it through actions. Yes, you can. More silence. Then, Mom, do you think you'll ever forgive me? Really forgive me? I thought about that question, the one everyone kept asking. I'm closer than I was, I said finally. A year ago, I hated you. 6 months ago, I was ambivalent. Now I see someone trying. That's not forgiveness yet, but it's the path toward it. That's enough, David said, his voice breaking. That's more than enough. David's work release ended after 18 months. He'd served a total of 2.5 years, 1 in prison, 1.5 under work release. The day he was officially free, he came to my office at the shelter. "What happens now?" he asked. "What do you mean? Do I leave, find my own place, or can I stay?" I'd been thinking about this question for weeks. "You can stay, but not as a work release inmate, as a staff member." His eyes widened. "You're offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a purpose. The shelter needs a full-time operations manager, someone to handle logistics, maintenance, volunteer coordination. It doesn't pay much, $35,000 a year plus room and board." "I'll take it." "I'm not finished. You'll also need to continue therapy, weekly sessions, non-negotiable, and you'll need to be honest with every new resident about who you are and what you did." "Honest how?" "You tell them your story. Tell them you're the son who threw out his mother. Tell them you're here because you're trying to atone. No hiding, no shame. Full transparency." He swallowed hard. "That's going to be uncomfortable." "Yes, but if you're genuinely changed, you won't hide from your past. You'll own it." "Okay, I'll do it." So David became staff, moved from a resident room to a small staff apartment in the finished basement, started drawing a salary. And he told his story to every new resident, every volunteer, every visitor. "I'm David. I'm working here because I committed elder abuse against my own mother. I stole her house and threw her out. I served prison time for it. Now I'm trying to spend the rest of my life making sure what happened to her doesn't happen to anyone else." Some people wouldn't work with him after hearing that, couldn't trust someone who'd done what he did. Others appreciated the honesty, found inspiration in his redemption arc, flawed as it was. The shelter continued to grow. We bought the second house, then a third, created a network of safe homes for elderly people across Philadelphia. David managed all of it. The logistics, the coordination, the endless details that made everything run smoothly. He was good at it, really good. "You found your calling," Margaret said one day, watching him troubleshoot a plumbing issue in house number 2. "Maybe, or maybe I'm just doing what I should have been doing all along, taking care of my family. It's just a bigger family now." 2 years after his release, Lauren reached out. She'd finished her probation and community service. "I'd like to volunteer at the shelter," she said when she called me. "Why?" "Because I need to make amends, too. What we did to you, I can't undo it, but maybe I can do better moving forward." I was skeptical, but I'd given David a chance. Fair was fair. Same conditions as David. Tell your story, be honest about what you did, and if you manipulate or mistreat anyone, you're out. She agreed. Lauren and David worked together at the shelter, navigating the awkwardness of being divorced partners united by shared guilt. "It's weird," David said, "working with my ex-wife to atone for what we did together." "Is it working? The atonement?" "I don't know. Some days I feel like I'm making progress. Other days I remember what I did and feel like nothing will ever be enough." "Good." "Good? Guilt keeps you honest. The day you stop feeling guilty is the day I'll worry you've stopped caring." 3 years after being thrown out of my house in the rain, I gathered everyone for a house meeting. All the residents, all the staff, all the regular volunteers. "I have an announcement," I said. "I'm retiring as director." Shocked murmurs. "I'm 75 years old. I've spent the last 3 years building this organization from nothing. It's time to let someone else lead." "Who?" Margaret asked. "You. You're the new executive director. You've been running everything with me anyway. It's time to make it official." Margaret teared up. "I'm honored." "Don't be. It's a ton of work for very little pay." I turned to David. "And you're promoted to Director of Operations. You'll oversee all 3 houses and the day center." David was stunned. "Mom, are you sure?" "I'm sure. You've earned it. You've put in the work, proven yourself over and over. You're not the man who threw me out anymore. You're someone better." "Does this mean—" He couldn't finish the question. "Does it mean I forgive you?" "Yes, finally, genuinely, yes, I forgive you." The room erupted in applause. David was crying. So was I. "But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting," I continued. "What you did is part of our story, part of this shelter's story. It's why we exist. We don't erase that. We learn from it." "I understand." After the meeting, David and I spoke privately. "Thank you," he said, "for giving me a second chance, for believing I could change." "Thank you for actually changing. A lot of people don't. They just say they will." "What will you do now in retirement?" "Travel, maybe. Visit friends I haven't seen in years because I was too busy building this place. Read books, garden, all the things elderly people are supposed to do." "You deserve it. We all deserve peace. That's the point of this place. Second chances, new beginnings, peace after pain." He hugged me, really hugged me. For the first time in years, it felt like hugging my son instead of hugging a stranger wearing his face. "I love you, Mom. I know I lost the right to say that, but it's true." "I love you too, even after everything. Maybe especially after everything, because it would be easier not to." So here we are, 4 years after that rainy day when my son threw me out of my own house. I'm sitting in my new apartment, a small, comfortable place downtown, paid for with the money from selling the original house. Yes, I sold it. Too many bad memories. Better to start fresh. The money from the sale went to the Shelter Foundation. We're expanding to 5 houses now, with plans for 10 within 5 years. David is running the organization brilliantly. Margaret keeps him honest. Lauren is still volunteering, doing good work with new residents. We've helped over 200 elderly people in 4 years. Some stayed a few months and moved into their own places. Others became permanent residents, finding family in our community. Frank is now a volunteer coordinator. Dorothy helps with intake assessments. Helen runs our financial literacy program. The people who were once victims are now advocates, helping others escape the situations they survived. That's the legacy of that rainy day. Not the pain, but what we built from it. People ask me all the time, do you regret pressing charges? Do you regret making your son go to prison? The answer is no, because without consequences, there's no change. Without accountability, there's no growth. David needed to face what he'd done, really face it, not just say sorry, but understand the depth of his cruelty and its impact. Prison gave him that. The shelter gave him purpose. Time gave him perspective. Is he fully redeemed? I don't know if anyone ever is, but he's trying, genuinely trying, every single day. That's all anyone can do. To those of you watching who've experienced elder abuse, and I know you're out there because it's far more common than anyone wants to admit, I need you to hear this. You are not a burden. You are not disposable. You are not too old to matter. Your children, your family, whoever is mistreating you, they are wrong. You deserve respect. You deserve dignity. You deserve safety. And there is help available. Elder abuse hotlines, legal aid organizations, shelters like ours. You don't have to suffer in silence. I almost did. I almost accepted being thrown away because I thought that's what happened to old people, that we just become inconvenient and have to deal with it. But that's a lie, a cruel, pervasive lie that lets families abuse their elderly members without consequence. Don't believe it. Don't accept it. Fight back. To those of you who are adult children caring for aging parents, I have a different message. It's hard. I know it's hard. Caring for elderly parents while managing your own life is exhausting and thankless and often feels impossible. But they're still human beings. They still have dignity. They still deserve your respect. If you're feeling overwhelmed, get help. Find respite care. Join support groups. See a therapist. Do whatever you need to do to manage your stress. But don't abuse them. Don't steal from them. Don't throw them away when they become inconvenient. Because someday you'll be old too, and the way you treat your parents is the way your children will learn to treat you. Think about that. To those of you who've already done something terrible to an elderly family member, who've stolen from them, abused them, abandoned them, I have the hardest message. You can't undo what you did. You can't erase the pain you caused, but you can choose to do better moving forward. It won't be easy. People won't forgive you quickly. You'll have to prove yourself over and over, and even then, some people will never trust you again. But change is possible. David is proof of that. It requires genuine remorse, not guilt because you got caught, but real understanding of the harm you caused. It requires action, not just saying you're sorry, but spending your life making amends. It requires humility, accepting you don't deserve forgiveness, but trying to earn it anyway. And it requires time, years of consistent, genuine effort. If you're willing to do that work, maybe there's hope for you, but only maybe, and only if you really, truly commit. Before I close, I want to thank everyone who's been part of this journey. To Margaret, my sister in butt blood, who helped me build something beautiful from something broken. To Harold, my attorney, who fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. To every volunteer, every donor, every supporter who believed in second chances and helped make them possible. To the residents who trusted us with their stories and their healing. And yes, to David, for doing the hard work of genuine change, for proving that even the cruelest people can become better if they choose to. This story doesn't have a fairy tale ending. David and I have a relationship now, but it's not the one we had before. It's something different, built on honesty instead of obligation, on respect instead of assumption. Is it enough? Some days yes, some days no, but it's what we have, and it's real. The shelter continues, the work continues, the healing continues. That's all any of us can do. Continue, keep trying, keep growing, keep building something better than what was broken. If you made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. I know it was long and parts of it were painful, but I needed you to understand the full journey, not just the abuse, not just the revenge, not just the redemption, all of it. Because that's life, complicated, messy, painful, and occasionally beautiful. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps other people who might need to hear this find it. Subscribe to this channel. We share stories of survival, resilience, and fighting back when the world tries to break you. Share this video with someone who might need it, someone being abused or someone doing the abusing. Maybe it'll open their eyes. And drop a comment. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me if you've experienced elder abuse or if you know someone who has. Tell me your story. Let's build a community where elderly people are valued, protected, and celebrated, where families care for each other with love instead of resentment, where second chances are possible, but only after real accountability. That's the world I want to live in, the world I'm trying to build, one shelter at a time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring. Thank you for believing that even the most broken things can be rebuilt into something stronger. I'm Elizabeth Wilson. I was thrown out of my house at 72 and told to clean toilets. Instead, I built a refuge for people just like me. I took my pain and turned it into purpose. And if I can do it at 75, you can do it too, whatever your age, whatever your situation. Never give up, never stop fighting, never accept being thrown away. You matter. Your dignity matters. Your story matters. Until next time, stay strong, stay fierce, and remember, the best revenge isn't getting even. It's building something so beautiful from the ashes that everyone who tried to destroy you has to watch it shine.